So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a workshop from a series of workshops organized by UNCN, myself and Help People, which is a Ukrainian organization that focuses on logistics and evacuation. These are the list of the workshops that we have done. Now, we had the last workshop that we did was fundraising strategy. The one we did grants writing as well, and then the one that we postponed was a marketing, PR, social media, and community-based marketing, which will happen next week. As of now, we have discussed the humanitarian response and the UN system and how we fit within that system and what our role is. We saw there as well the phases of disaster recovery and how organizations, community-based groups, activists, and charities fit within that system. Then on our next workshop, we saw donors and customers, which was about finding the money. So who has the money and how do we get it into our operations by, for example, mapping who our donors are, understanding how to get new donors and how to keep these donors engaged. And also for those who don't work with charities, for which donors might be less relevant, we talked about social entrepreneurship and how you can generate revenue for your operation, which is also relevant for charities. I think that the best way forward for any of us is to diversify our fundraising strategy so that we have a more even flow of funds that will keep us continuing to do our work. Then we talked about project proposals, which is this workshop, which we have repeated because at the end of this series of workshops, we hope to provide one of you lucky winners with a small grant of something like £170 to get a professional grant writer to write a grant for your operation. We had this workshop before, we didn't record it, so now we think it's important that you guys get that information if you want to participate. The idea is that we will collect these project proposals next week so that we can allocate it, but it's very simple, it's not scary, you will see today. So today's workshop is about how to make a project proposal in 1 hour. In under 1 hour. So let me tell you, my presentation is a lot longer than what it would take us to write it. Then we have we also talked about grant writing and explained where in that cycle those project proposal fit, and where how we can develop those skills and abilities within our organization. Yeah, that's it. We're going to talk about next week about marketing, PR, social media, and community-based marketing. The first part is going to be, the do's and don'ts for charities, and the rest is going to be a specific guide on how to manage your social media marketing. And we're going to do a 5-minute setting up publicity in Facebook kind of thing, so that you guys know how to do it yourselves. And it's also super simple. I have been in the place where I found it super daunting to be setting up publicity and marketing, like pushing a post or paying for marketing on Facebook or writing a project proposal. It took the living life out of me to do that in the first couple of tries, and it was very difficult, but over time I realized how simple it is, and it still takes me some effort. So I also have other tools that might be able to help you, get an easy start on it. For those of you who have not been with us before, these are our social media and contacts. I'm myself, Diana at helppeople.org. However, we also have tied together directory and coordination, which has a link to a link tree where you can find a lot of guidance on how to volunteer in Ukraine, and even like, for example, mechanics that you can go, we have vetted, etc. We also have a Facebook group that I coordinate, humanitarian coordination for Ukraine. And in the directory of Tie Together, we also have 30 WhatsApp groups, which are not vetted because, again, it's like lightly vetted because it's WhatsApp. And the idea is that it's kind of a more open space for collaboration. These 30 groups are focused on specific interests. So one is, for example, winterization. The other one is people in Lviv, people in Kiev. The other one is mechanics. And the other one is want, have, and info. There's another for news and chat. And it's one of the most dynamic networks I belong to. So if you guys want to join, all you got to do is go to this Linktree address here, and it should allow you to enter the lobby group for the groups, and they will vet you lightly, and you will be in. Right, so this was the end of this one. Now, is anyone here that hasn't, oh, I have 2 people joining. Hi, how are you, Nicole? Hi, Lindsay, again.
Sorry about that, guys.
No worries. Is anyone here that has never written a project proposal? Do you mind if you raise your hands? Because then I will be a little bit more specific about some things. Okay. So I'm gonna be quite frank with you guys. This is not my presentation. This is the reason that you're not receiving this presentation from me. This presentation is from Philanthropia, which is a platform that that has courses on online learning. They're also a consultancy and development trust for charities and not-for-profits, and they do amazing work. So it's also quite affordable, something like under $20 or $40. You can get a course on fundraising and whatnot. So please do check it. This was a webinar by Dr. Eva Winners. And then the idea is that we will talk about project proposal, which is also known as project plan. There's different ways to call it. We will talk about what is a project plan, why is a project plan necessary, what are the most important parts of a project plan, what is the difference between a project plan and a project proposal, and why I convolute them both, and then how does it help your proposal. If at any points you have questions, please raise your hands. I see Nicole's hand still up. If you have a question, Nicole.
Yeah, no, sorry, no question. I just raised my hand to let you know I hadn't written one before. Thank you.
No worries. So I have a question to all of you. What would you like to take out from this workshop? You can answer in the chat, or you can raise your hand if you want to speak. Okay, so when we talk about a project plan is a comprehensive plan about what you want to do and how, and it describes in as many details as possible. Now, that detail will depend on what requirements are, what you need for your team, for yourself, and for your donors. Yeah. Usually it is a roadmap for your project. So you want to write it just to make sure that you are, that the whole team is aligned, that you understand where you're going, that you foresee as well, for example, what limitations you may find along the way. Say, for example, you want to get, generators for orphanages. Then what you would do is you would, map which of the, you would start with the project proposal, say, okay, we want to provide these generators for, and then part of that will be about understanding a context, would be about, basically you answer the 5 W's and the why. So it's what, why, how, when, where, and then who, sorry, I might have missed one. I always convolute them. Sorry, guys. What have I? Give me a minute, please. All right. So the 5 W's. Yeah, here. So it's the where, who, what, how, why, when, by whom, and for whom, actually, in the who. And I'm going to show you this one. And it makes part of, here. It makes part of the grant life cycle. Now, the grant life cycle, a lot of you will apply for grants, others will not, because it depends on your interest, on how formal you are on your request for funds. But if you are applying for grants, it's necessary because you have to be able to get other people to understand what you're after, what you're trying to achieve. As you can see here as guarantee, you start with articulating your idea. Then you move on to research funding, then you develop a proposal, then you submit an application. Now that proposal, the developed proposal, that goes hand in hand with the project plan. So you have a project plan and you have a project proposal, and they are slightly different, but they are similar in some ways. And I will explain as well why. In big charities, when your team is big and you're massive, you need to have a guidance for your team on how to implement an idea. And you also have to have another document to demonstrate to donors or grantors, to explain to them what you're trying to do. And the requirements of that one will depend a lot on the requirements of the donor. However, because we are all a little bit smaller charities, we don't have one person specifically working for grants or whatever, it can be that instead we try to create one document that has as much information as possible. And then that when we are communicating with our other stakeholders outside of the organization, what we do is we tailor that information for them. Or the other way is also possible. It can be that your team understands where they want to go because it's just me and another person and we are agreeing in everything that we're doing. Then what we do is one of us will sit down, write the project proposal for the donor. And then depending on the requirements of the donor, it will be as dedicated or not. I don't think that a project proposal, like if you are working, for example, yeah. So if you're working, for example, with UN, the project proposal, is going to be very specific, very exact. They want to know some things. I'm going to show you today how that looks like. But if you are doing this for another donor that just wants to be able to explain to their own donors how what is going on here, then you can create something a little bit less clear, specific. As guarantor, how that looks like is I am giving you a grant. I try to articulate our mission. Oh, sorry. I'm muting Ella. So I am trying to, I have funds. So I have funds right now. I have a donor that's given me $10,000. And with this $10,000, they want to have some impact. And so I will go on and see, okay, what are we trying to achieve with this money? Then I create the funding details. I say, in order to access these funds, here's what the donor requires. The donor requires feedback. Donor requires an organization that has a proven track record. The donor requires a registered organization or not. They might just require simply pictures, or they might require that it's, a charity. Then after this, we build the application. We say, okay, so these are going to be the requirements. This is how people apply. And then we put the market call. So we say, okay, we are going to be looking for these organizations that are doing this. And, we put it out, we receive the applications, then we review the applications. Then we select the best grants. And then we support the grantees. And in starting from the moment where we receive the project plan, from the project proposal, from that moment, what we do is we use that project proposal to manage the points of contact, to manage the accountability, the monitoring and evaluation, and we make sure that, you know, at all points this is being implemented the way that it was said it was implemented. Now, some grants do not have this. Some grants will tell you, you know what, you're free to do with this money whatever you want. We believe you, and you know, just show us pictures. But other grants will actually require that you stick to the project plan that you created, and they will have sort of like feedback. Right. So let me move to the next step. Today we will learn how, so this is how I create my project proposals. So I talk about the who, the what, the when, the where, the why, and how. And again, the level of detail will depend on the donor, but this, whenever I create a project proposal, I make sure that all of these questions are answered. And a lot of you will look very familiar to you, because if you manage not only projects, but say, for example, research papers or literally anything that you require to share information with another person, you will have managed this. So we'll see now how that looks like in practice. Yeah. But yeah, so every project proposal, just if you even want to follow this structure, the who, what, when, where, why, how, you will be fine. And again, like I said, it will more depend on the level of information that the donor needs, or that the stakeholder you're sharing this with needs. If it's your team and your team needs more detailed information, then that would be what is, you know, the requirement. Let's see. Right. So why do you need a project plan? You need a project plan to sell a plan to your own NGO, to your other partners, to help them understand that, hey, this makes sense. And these are the kind of like liabilities that we have if you do it, but these are also the kind of wins that that can stem from it. You can use it to plan for eventualities and challenges. It helps you align your team and get everybody pulling towards the same side. And it also forces you to gather information that you may not have conceived before, like, for example, what are the kind of limitations we might face in this particular phase of the project or in that. You don't need it, but writing it helps. And like I said, if you feel like, okay, it's good enough, my team is small, we're all aligned, we all understand where we're going, and we are, you know, in direct contact every day, you don't need to have it. It can be that the donor requires it, and then in that point you enter, it's fine, it's okay. You do the bare minimum, because you have to be as you know, conscious about your energy and your time, and your time is your most precious resource within charities. All of us are like struggling for time, and it might seem like it's money, but not really. You will see there is so much funding out there. The problem is we don't have the time to write these grants. We don't have the time to set up these charities and manage all of these like paperwork, and it's really overwhelming. So because time is your most precious resource, we're gonna try and find like the short route for this. So this, like I said, are the project plan, the basics of the project plans. Where, why, what, who, how, timeline, and budgets, in my experience, are sort of part of the how. It's a more specific part of the how. So long as it has those components, you're fine. Now we start with where are you? Yeah, what information do you already have? Which points are clear, which are unclear? Who is already involved in the project? What did already happen? What didn't happen, and why? And which strengths and weaknesses should be considered? And we do that because a lot of the times we will already be working on things that then we realize, oh my God, this should be a project. Like you're already helping, sorry, I'm going back to the same example of the orphanage, but you're already helping the orphanage and you realize they have needs that you are struggling to support. And you think, okay, maybe we can do this through a project proposal. And then you go and ask them and you check and you create a project proposal and you go out there and you find funds for them. Depending on how your fundraising strategy looks like, it makes a lot more sense sometimes as well than to go to the public and ask for money. For example, you know, people's of special concern, children, elderly. They are people to whom you can always find a lot of grants available, because there's a lot of funds out there that are concerned with their well-being. So it might make a lot of sense to, either find an organization that is already working with children, or apply for funding with UNICEF or whatnot to do that, or to save the children, or any of these organizations that have specific mandate on these specific vulnerable people. So what is the difference between a project plan and a project proposal? A project plan is internal, a project proposal is external. The audience. So a project plan is for an internal audience, project proposal is for an external audience. And what that means is, like I said, if you have one main document, you can basically, sort of copy paste, select. And that's actually, by the way, like most of the time what happens with project plans. One of our humanitarian colleagues was saying that writing project proposals is like writing fiction. Like you're a glorified writer of fiction that actually makes money, hundreds of thousands out of it. Not for yourself, but still, I think that's pretty true. I think that a lot of the times we write great project proposals that don't necessarily translate so well when you're doing it, but it doesn't matter, because it comes from a good place. But at the same time, when it comes to what you're writing, the cool thing about it is that you usually tend to reuse the same project proposals. So if you write, for example, in my case, I have a project proposal for generators I will share with you now, that I wrote in March for Irpin and Bucha in Ukraine, for hospitals. And then now I'm just moving on, like copy pasting that project proposal and looking for funding for hospitals in the front lines. And next year, when there's another crisis somewhere else in the world that needs generators, I'm just going to go back to this project proposal, copy paste it. And this is kind of like a thing that it's a normal practice. We have to consider that, again, we are strapped for times. I'm a volunteer, I don't get paid to do this. And even if I did get paid to do this, I'll probably get paid to do another 100,000 things, because it's charity. So time is always a main constraint, and it's okay if we are just like cutting corners, so long as it gets us where we have to be. Are there any questions so far, by the way? Right, so like I was mentioning, the purpose of writing a project plan is to implement a project and to know who is doing what, to coordinate better, to find as well like the limitations that you may come across and plan for them. A proposal is the basis for a funding decision by a donor, like I was showing you on the grant, for example, on the grant cycle, and to focus on different aspects. For example, like socially and other things that you may not have considered when you first thought this is a great idea. So the tone for both is a formal document, but a project plan will be more technical, because it's to inform your teams. So you will be able to say there's stuff like, what are the kind of, I don't know, fuel that you need for the cars, how much, for how many kilometers, or how does the route look like. But in general, a good project proposal will invoke emotion and be more than just a collection of facts. Now, I struggle a lot with that. I must say that's one of my improvement points, because what I do usually is I try to paint a complete picture that is a little bit more detached from my emotions, because I'm too invested. I'm not a humanitarian person, I'm a humanitarian activist. And activist means I do take side in a conflict, and sometimes it can be perceived as something that is not a good, because it breaks with the humanitarian principles, in case you haven't heard of them: impartiality, neutrality, equality, dignity. So in many cases, I will be seen as taking part of a conflict. So I try to kind of tone that down. Right, so in the project plan, you should explain how you want to implement the project, and the proposal can focus on the why. We have another, like in the next session, we will talk about this as well, but usually, because we're talking with donors, donors don't understand facts, they understand emotions, and they focus on values and that sort of stuff, which is very fluffy, floating in the air. The best way to cope with that is just by focusing on the why. Start with why, and the rest will fall in place. You start with, we want to, is the right thing to evacuate these orphans? Is the right thing to provide these hospitals with energy? And if you get that message to reflect the internal narratives of your donors, then they will be keen on donating to you. Even if the money disappears, which is not ideal, but even if the money disappears, they'll be like, it's okay, we did it. We donated with this goal in mind, and you know what? It got sorted, or perhaps it's, you try to sort it as well as you can, and it failed, and it's like, you know what? We tried. It's important that you focus on that, like, alignment of values and interest with your donors, more than, for example, getting cars or getting generators, because these things do not create emotions. And in fact, a lot of your donors will think, well, why am I giving you a car when I don't have one? Yeah, why am I stopping to invest my money in my car, and instead, like, giving it to you for a car? Instead, maybe focus on the, okay, we need to evacuate these people, and this is why we need the money. And whatever happens with the money is just sort of secondary, if it goes to fuel, if it goes to cars. Does this make any sense at all? Does anybody, like think of this as a situation they have faced within their work? I'm reading the chat, by the way. All right, so how does a project plan help with a proposal? Like I said, you just pick and copy paste what are useful. And it's also great for grant proposals. Like, if you have a project proposal, writing the grant proposal should come a little bit easier. Thank you, Lindsay. Right, so like I said, Philanthropia has amazing trainings. You can pay $50 for their writing project plan, discounted now. This is how they look like. Yeah, and you can still use the discount as of now. If you have any questions, just let me know if you want to use it and whatnot. So now we're gonna go. I'm gonna show you how I do it, and I'm gonna let you guys have a go at it. And we're gonna write a project proposal in 20 minutes or less, if that's okay. Are there any questions so far? Okay. All right, so I'm gonna ask you guys to download something at some point from online. Just give me a minute. I'll try to find my way around my computers. Okay, so I'm gonna share with you guys on the chat a link that I'm gonna ask you all to download.
And I'm gonna jump on our my internal groups call, and I'll be back. Thank you.
Right, no worries. Right, so if you guys can download the document, is there anyone here that is going to write the project proposal with me? Just so that I make sure I'm not wasting all of your times. Okay, so you cannot open the file. Let me see if I can share it with you. Um, There we go. Okay, I think yeah. Can you all see the document on the chat?
Yeah, we
Right.
can see the document. I think if you go to the share button, there's an option that you can just, with a link that they generate for you, anyone with that link can edit the document so we can all jump into the Google Doc together.
So this is not my document. That's the reason we cannot do it.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
This is a UNDP project proposal file. So if you want to find a project proposal like fit to what you're trying to do, usually what I do is I go online and I look for project proposals within the area. Like, for example, if I'm doing a project proposal for UNICEF, I will usually just look into UNICEF project proposal, children, orphans, or children, mental health, or children, Bangladesh, and I will see what's there. And usually, in fact, in the grants, they will already tell you what you need. And if you have a specific requirement for project proposals, they will do, but sometimes they don't, or sometimes you want to, reach out to other partners that are from UNICEF, but not directly with them or whatever. Then you can go and look online for like the best, project proposal templates or examples. Now, this one here is one that I have very successfully used for several things. And it's one of the ones that I keep going back to. And this is also one of the most like blasted on the UN sort of system. Because it's very neat, it's very short, as you can see. It's kind of like 10 pages, but you will see it's quite exact. It goes where it has to go. So it starts with this project proposal, the title, the date, and then it starts with an info sheet. Oh, sorry, I'm gonna put it on the screen. Can you all see my screen? I think I stopped sharing. So you all can see my screen. Okay. For some reason it's not there. Okay, so you all can see the document, right? Right, so we start with the project proposal title, and then it moves to, the information of the contact person that is writing the project proposal, so that, you can trace back who it is and email them directly. The title of the project, the location, then the total cost, the project duration, and then problem description and project summary. Yeah, and this here should be, good information that has three key points that you want to raise, including the costs, and then the what are you doing, and how are you doing it. Then it moves on to the project rationale, and it explains the brief description of the natural disaster. Then it tells you about the response to the recovery needs, the situation analysis and specific needs. Again, it's just all about answering the what, why, how, etc. And then you move on to the project description. Yeah, sorry. It also talks about flood protection and like the kind of actions that are needed to be taken. Then you move on to the project description, which will describe the full project. This particular project has two components, so it also mentions the components specifically. Then it moves on to the project implementation approach and partnerships. And then it moves to management arrangements. Now, this is a specific thing for UN that most of the times is not required, which is about like who is going to be responsible for what. And it's recommendable that you do this if you are in a, asking from a very highly bureaucratic organization, like, I don't know, USAID or something like that. Then who is the project management and who is the project management and project team? So the delivery group. And then here the organigram of the project. And this, like I said, is very specific for UN. You almost don't see this in other applications. If you want to work to this level of detail, I'm not gonna stop you. Just think about your time, you know, and this is like not necessary for many cases. And I'm gonna show you how I use this. Then the project work plan. So it explains here, you know, the implementation steps. Then the monitoring and reporting, because it's very important that you clarify that as well before with your donors and you know, with your team as well. You know, what are the kind of things that the donor wants to see, at which points can we show them that. Then the analysis of risks, which is, you know, how you are going to prevent this from being effective, from, you know, blowing up in our faces. And it helps us as well, you know, understanding, like preparing steps to prevent these things from happening. Then they have another point, which is visibility. You know, again, it's about how are we going to remain accountable to all our stakeholders. And then project budget. I know budgeting is a big issue, but I will explain in a moment how we manage that in other projects. And then, I don't know, annex, whatever you wanna need to add. Are there any questions about this? I know it might feel like overwhelming. I felt overwhelmed the first time that I had something like this in front of me. But I'm just gonna kind of like deconstruct it in a minute. Just wanna know, how are you all doing? Are you still here? Do you have any questions or any comments? Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Don. So how we are using this. Now, I had to raise funds for 2 bands in Ukraine at the start of the war. Now, this is how we did it. So we put a number on the amount of lives that we wanted to save. We said 160 Ukrainian lives. This is the name of the organization. This is the website. Again, like who is the contact person, the title of the project, support evacuation of civilians in active conflict zones in Donetsk, Lysychansk, Kramatorsk, Mariupol, Kharkiv, Bucha, Irpin. And then we talked about the total project cost in euros and the project duration. So far, this is the same as the previous one. Then we clarified our target, just because we wanted to make sure that this climbed through. Then we explained how we made our calculations for this cost. Then we spoke about the situation, so the why, right? The situation in Donetsk, Luhansk, and Kharkiv. And for this, we use official data numbers from the UN. We used from Reuters, and we used from France 24, so news channels. And then we put it a timeline. We said these cars will usually last us until like 4 weeks, because usually the cars get destroyed after 4 weeks. Then we explain as well what our response has been so far, what we have done. These are our routes. This is what we need. And then the risks and liabilities, we explained here that this is just what happens. Like our cars will be confiscated, they will be bombed, and there's literally no way for us to prevent some of these things from happening. And this is what our request was, our payment information, and a thank you for your support. And we shared this with our donor, and our donor just fundraised for 2 cars and send it to us. So it will be, again, depending on the requirements of your donors. This other project proposal also has the same document, but a lot more detail, because we were fundraising here from a big organizational donor for these very big generators for hospitals. And so what we did was we had to create so many background sort of like information. So I'm gonna see if I can find it, not here. I think, yeah, generator short project proposal. So we wrote a small short project proposal, again, same format. the target calculations, the partners, the situation, the risk and liabilities, the request. And then in the request, we wrote very specific, requests for the generators, and we added a bunch of documents that I literally had to explain here on our communication with the team. We were fundraising. These are the registration of the charity. This is the company status. This is the generator's quotation. This is the request from different hospitals requesting the 17 generators, the translations of those requests, the report for our organization activities from the week before, and then our bank details. And then also, sharing the following, request letters as well that for whatever reason had to be sent apart. And, other hospitals that said they needed them, but didn't have the opportunity to share a letter of request. So this is how we did it back then. Are there any questions so far? When it comes to our requests, we also, I'm gonna see if I can find some more because I have some more somewhere. Solar cities. So we're working also with solar cities. Some of the projects proposals that we write it because we're working with other partners and we sort of want to align both sides. So we started, for example, this one with a brain dumping, and so we just moved to, like, how could this look like, sorry, this is not the one. No, I don't think this is the one. Hold on. Give me a minute. Here, solar cities. So we started with a brain dumping document, and that we started to brief to write together, like the what, why, where, who, how much, timeline, financials, management and evaluation. And then we wrote it. By the way, I write everything in colors. So because we are collaborating together, what I do is I write everything in red. And once we have reviewed the content and we agreed on, like, okay, this content is necessary, we switch it to like orange, which means, okay, is this a permanent thing? Is this something that we have to change, reword, change from site in the document? And then once agreed, it goes to green. So here you see, we decided to start with the what it is, who will do it, who needs it most, who will do it. And then we move to like, collecting other like content such as learning and whatnot. And then we wrote the project proposal that we didn't finish with the proper budgeting, because then at that point I delivered that to our partners to do that. But you can see here the more or less finalized sort of project proposal. We added the pictures so that you understand what we mean when we talk about dragons for Ukraine, and then the project brief, the situation, again informed by Relief Web and UN, and then the what, explaining what it is, what it does. And we went on to add videos and whatnot, the where, the what, and then the timeline. The phases were agreed with the partner, so I didn't add it. They took this document and finished it basically, and yeah, they did the rest. But the structure is very basic, as you can see. It wasn't like massive, didn't have to be very special. I think that writing this on my own costed me something like half an hour, just because we already had like a good idea of what we wanted to do. So all I did was just sit down and put everything in paper. And I guess that's what we're gonna do now. How are you guys doing? Do you guys wanna give it a go? Do you feel very confident? One thing I wanted to share about financials. I think writing financials for projects feels quite overwhelming in general. Like, it feels like, how do you even estimate, right? I think that it is important that whatever we do, we overestimate, that we estimate not crazily though, because if you are depending on the donor, like, you have to consider the donor might have a grant for 15K, and if you're applying with a project for 50K, or 60K, that automatically means you won't get it. You won't get that funding because, you know, they cannot fund the whole thing. So I would say just, you know, count salaries in, because it's important for you guys to get salaries paid. It's important for your sustainability. So count on some degree of salaries and overhead costs. Other than that, again, just get as much close to the real price as possible, and consider other things that, you know, you may not consider. Like for example, yeah, sure, we want a car and we put a car, but who is going to do the maintenance? How are you going to fund the fuel? So for example, for those cars that I was, you know, that we, for the vans that we fundraised for, the 24,000 included 1 month of fuel and maintenance, so that we knew it was going to be sustainable for all of us. So I think that, yeah. All right, so I see Nico's also about to jump to another meeting. So who is going to write this project proposal with our support? Who else is here? Don, Gwen, John, Lydia. Yeah. Are you guys writing a project proposal? Yeah. Okay. So what I think we should do is maybe, you know, you can get the you know, the project proposal that you're more comfortable with. If you want to give it a go to the one from that I shared here, the one from UNDP, we can try that one. Yeah. So let's open this one, and I'm going to write my project proposal today, which is going to be hats for penguins. Oh, sorry, I'm going to change this. Yeah. So I'm going to, you know, write my project for hats for penguins. And it's now January 2023. Now, this feels very pompous and luxurious to have a whole page. So I'm just going to, you know, cut that off and just make it like this. Very hastily. Yeah, so I'm gonna give us all, some time to fix this, like, you know, thing here. So we're gonna work on the first page, right? And if you can, if you have a project, like think of project that you would like, for example, to present to us. Okay, think about a project that you would like a grant for, and it could be something achievable. It can be something that, you know, provides a bit of soft landing for this. Like if you are raising funds for startings for, I don't know, hospitals, or solar panels for hospitals. Now I'm making a joke out of this because I do have other serious work to do, and this is my fun time. But you can definitely write a very serious project proposal right now with me. At least take notes, maybe make the basic start and infrastructure for it, and then what you can do is, you know, you can present that to us on the next couple of days. So in this case, yeah, my name is Sunshine, and I'm in I think there's no penguins in the South Pole. I'm not sure about that. Okay. Are you all filling out your project proposal? No, I'm gonna write it differently because it needs to be preferably an organizational. So Penguins of Antarctica. Then no fax number because there's no faxes in the South Pole. Okay, so my project then, name of the organization, contact person, postal address, phone number, contact person's email, address, website, title of the project, location, total cost, and then the project duration. Yeah. And then the problem description. And then in the problem description, you're gonna give as much as you can from your own perspective, but try as well to bring up some of those official numbers if you can, just to make sure that your donors are aware that you know what you're asking for. I'm gonna say there is a colony of 11,000 penguins with severe cold every winter. And then I'm gonna add here a WWF World Wildlife Foundation link. Now, usually what I do is I write my spiel and then I write what is missing in between, like big square parentheses. I don't know how the name is specifically, but the reason why I do that is because then I can just have the structure, the basic structure, and then go back and sort of like, add, like, bridge the gaps, so that I can just flow with it, and it's a lot less effortful for me. No, whatever. Okay, so the problem description, there is a colony of 11,000 penguins with severe cold every winter. Insert WWF link. These penguins are in dire need of huts in order to increase their survival rate. And then project summary. We hope to provide these hats in combination with researchers and meters worldwide. Yeah. And that's it. We just made the first page. How are you all doing? Dawn, Gwen, John, Lydia? Does any of you feel like you want to share about what your project is about? Thank you, Gwen. Right, so after this, you can move on the project rationale, where you explain, what's the conditions, what the reason is, why, this is happening. then the response to the recovery needs, if that's a thing in your context. Like what is being done so far, what has been done so far. Then the situation analysis and specific needs, and you can there be specific by mentioning, for example, different aspects. In a more serious note, for example, if you are doing something for an orphanage, like if you want to create a project proposal for this orphanage, you could speak about, for example, you know, their stability of the, you know, power situation, but also, for example, internet situation. Like if they need, you could actually pair those two components, like, okay, we need electricity, but they also need like internet, because, you know, the children education happens through iPads, through computers. They might need these computers as well, so you could also add there like these components, this technological component, and then you can have, for example, it be more about you know, an educational project if you are applying for a fund that does educational you know, that focuses on education, poverty. So you go you know, with the project. So we hope that we can provide this orphanage with stable access to internet and electricity so that the kids have less interruptions with their education, as a lot of them are now being educated online, and because they are far away from the city, because they don't have a like a school nearby. And so this is a way in which you can do that. You can say, you know, there's these three specific needs: access to internet, access to electricity, and a computer and, you know, hardware components. Then you have as well then the project description, how you plan on deploying that. You know, like you can say, we, you know, we hope to provide them with 30 laptops and 2 Starlink terminals, and you know, enough power backup that if the electricity goes out, they can have some. So one solar kit and one like fuel generator, and this is how that's going to work. Here's where you know, do all of that, and you can mention it like they have done here on specific components. Like the component 1 is the, you know, electricity. So yeah, we hope to set up a backup system that that is a mixture of fuel, electricity, and solar electricity, so that, you know, they can manage, because right now, you know, there's the funding for fuel that is necessary, and you can actually add that funding requirement here. Then in the second component would be about the Starlink terminals, and it's how are you going to procure the Starlink terminals? What do you need to make that happen? How does that look like? And then the third component could be the computers, you know, like these are the specifications of the computers that are needed. These actually, maybe it's not computers, maybe it's iPads, or maybe it's, you know, Android tablets or whatnot. And you can explain there, you know, like how are we planning on procuring them, and how are we planning on delivering them, and how are we allocating them? Like do all the children get one, or do we actually get like a set of tablets that get shared? Do you need time, guys, to work on this through? Don, Gwen, John, Lydia. If any of you wants me to slow down, you let me know, okay? Then the third, project implementation and partnerships. Here's where you go and you say, we actually have a partner that is buying Starlink terminals. We actually have a partner that can procure the solar kits in Poland and bring them into Ukraine. Then, you know, you tell about, thank you. Okay, so do you want me to wait for you, Wen? Okay, so I'm gonna try and you know, I will continue, but if any of you want me to slow down, because I know some of you will be working through these at the same time, then you let me know, please. And then we go into project implementation, approach, and partnerships, right? So that's what I was saying. You there go. You explain who's gonna get the styling terminals, how are you going to, who's gonna be your partner on, for example, helping procure the iPads and so on, or the tablets. Sorry. Then you talk about the management arrangements if necessary. I personally wouldn't if it's a project for an orphanage, because the orphanage will have their own management system and you don't have to be responsible for that. But yeah, basically you could do that if the project was requiring it. None of these actually, I would not use any of that. Then here in the project plan, you can do the same. You can use, what are the components that you're going to implement? Like, for example, procuring the Starlink terminals. How many weeks or how many months is it going to take you to get the Starlink terminals in, to get the generators? Like, you have to plan it, put it on a timeline to make sure that you can deliver and manage the expectations of the donor. Yeah. Who else is working their project proposal right now? All right. So with the monitoring and reporting as well, like, how are you going to let them know that this is working? Especially important if like your project has an ongoing capacity, like if you have to have someone teach the kids how to use the iPads, and this person's gonna come and do like, week full training or 3 weeks training, or come and teach them to use some software, some specific software, then you might actually have a little bit more of that reporting like ongoing. But if it's like a one-off delivery, then you just make sure that the point of contact is there, like, okay, we're gonna check in, as soon as it's delivered, we're gonna go on and check, or they're gonna send us pictures or videos, or they're gonna send us a list of the kids that have received it. They're gonna send us thank you letters, thank you notes, whatever they want that we see. And then you could say, well, actually the requirement that the donor has is that they want to see a month from now what the impact is, or 2 months from now, or 3 months from now. And then that way you have to agree beforehand with the recipient that what are the conditions for that, like monitoring and evaluation. Then with the analysis, risks, and undertaking, you can say, for example, Starlinks in Ukraine take about a month and a half to arrive. There's the chance that we have to import a generator from Poland. There's the chance that solar isn't enough in winter time. It could be that one of the risks is that the iPads get lost. How are you going to make sure that's not the case, that the iPad doesn't get stolen, or that it doesn't fall and break? So are you going to get them covers? Are you, what are you going to do about it? And then from that, you move towards visibility. Is this going to be posted on their website? Is this going to be posted on the news, on the media? Does the donor even want to be associated with this? Because we actually have a donor that has a major donation that is actually not interested in being associated with helping in Ukraine. So this donor has come to us and told us, well, look, this is my main concern, that I'm going to be associated with this, and I do not want that. And I understand. So, we take steps for that. So, we agree with the donor, like, okay, this is how that visibility looks like. And yes, this project might blow up because it's so massive, but we're going to try and, get the press out of it. We're gonna try, and this is how we're gonna keep that low key, or this is how we're gonna sell it if that comes out to the public, like how we procure this, not you. And then there's the project budget. To calculate budget, like I said, you have to calculate salary expenses. I would say just standard calculate a monthly salary. And a good way to do that is by looking at the local medium salary and adding 30%. So if you're going to hire someone from Ukraine, you find the average salary in Ukraine is 7,000. If you add 30,000 to that, which would be which would make it 1,000, then you would be on a salary for someone that is implementing a project. And so if it's an international person that is highly skilled that you want to bring there, then it would be something like double at least, if you can. If you have volunteers, still try and get someone hired, someone, so that you can make sure that this person is sustainably there. It's better if you get the money and then you decide to donate it. It's better if you get the money and then this person decides to whatever, I'm just gonna buy a car for the organization with that. Whatever works. It's just always better if you kind of get like that extra money, as it were. Especially important when you have like a team that is long term, because you want to make sure that they can stay long term doing this. You also should go and check the cost of things, especially in war zones. Things change prices. If you have a local team that can go on and come with the specific prices, but otherwise you just can't see online what the cost online is, and because the donor will likely be aware of the cost of things online. And so if it's not like outrageous, like if you're charging 5,000 for a solar panel that cost in Poland 3,000, then they're gonna be okay with that. And then that's it. We made it to the end. How are you all doing with the project writing? Have you all made a start? Because we have made it to the end of the workshop now. Don, Gwen, John, Lydia. Does anybody have any questions so far? Yeah, it is, Gwen, it's clearly like sometimes it's just about making a start where it's easier, and then continuing should make it like, flow better. If any of you have any questions or requires any help with your project proposal, just let me know. Once you have this project proposal, the deadline for submitting the projects will be, I guess, 10 days from now. I think it's like from next Wednesday, 3 days later. So please do try and finish as much as you can until then. We don't need a lot of specificity in the project proposal for the offer, because we're gonna get a professional project proposal writer to work with you on more specific factors. All that we need is to make sure that you are, aware of, that we get a clear idea rather than anything else, a clear idea of how that looks like, how does the project, what's the impact, how does the project looks like in terms of money, impact, and the amount of people impacted, so that we can choose one of them for the grant proposal. Yeah. Now I'm gonna show you guys what I do with a lot of these projects. When we talk about project proposal, this is what I mean. We're gonna hire someone from Fiverr, which is a professional grant writer. Now these grant writers usually have have a basic package where they just find grant opportunities. They also have a standard which has like, you know, one grant proposal, but just the grant proposal. They have a premium, which they will research, write, and apply to grant donor for business and nonprofit. Yeah. So this is the package that we will be raffling between those that shows their project proposal. It includes an executive summary, needs assessment, organization background, grant objectives and methodology, evaluation, budget proposal, review and edit, and the grant. So they will find a grant. Now, this particular person focuses on 501c3, and there are a bunch of organizations here that are not 501c3, that are just not for profits. This also applies to them. And there are others that are, you know, not for profits, like myself. And then in that case, it also applies to them. And whoever we get will depend on who is the person who has this project that looks amazing and that is so realizable and impactful. Yeah. So again, do your best, and I hope to see you guys next time. There was a request for the links for the previous ones. I will be sharing them soon. For now, I apologize because I said I was gonna do it before this presentation, but Christmas got in the way. And now I am going to do it since I'm back. Yeah. Are there any questions so far? Can we close this workshop already? No worries, John. Thank you so much for joining. I hope that this helps you and your team. If you're interested, again, in the presentation, if you found it insightful, try and check the other ones that we have done so far, because they were really enlightening. So that was a humanitarian response and UN crash course. The other one was donors and customers for not-for-profits. Then fundraising strategy, which was super impactful about how to create a good balance in your fundraising strategy. Then we had this one with project proposals, and then we had the grants writing and grants proposal for business sponsorship as well. And we also had then the marketing and PR social media, which will happen next week. So I look forward to having you, and no worries. I will try and share the links. It's long. Some of the workshops are some like 2.5 hours. Watch it on your own time. I'm here for you if you need anything, okay? All right, I'll see you then all. Thank you so much for coming. Bye-bye.